In this episode, we're going to install some fret wire. All right, we're finishing up part 5, so what we now call part 5B on this one, because we had just too much content in part 5 to do with one episode. So we broke it into 2. And now that I think about it, I'm really glad that I did that because this alone, talking about the fretting process, could take a very long time to do as detailed of an explanation as what many of you expect. And again, if you're following us on this series and you have not requested the week by week, or should I say part by part, list of all of the things that we're going to teach and talk about and accomplish, plus the product materials list, plus the outline where you can take notes on every part that we go through. If you haven't already gotten that, email me at info@maximumguitarworks.com and I will send them to you. And if you are going through this series but you don't have your templates yet, reach out to me, let me know, look at my template series that I did previously, and look at that and see what I'm doing that is not available anywhere else. The safety aspects, the precision and repeatability alignments, I believe is unmatched out there. Those of you who have already bought the setup, let other people know. Let's take a quick overview of the tools that we are going to use and go over today. I'm just showing you right now, but we're going to talk about each and every part of this individually, and hopefully that will help. And look at our fretboard while you're at it. This is ready for frets. So let's start talking about these things. No rhyme or reason. I guess I'll start left to right, my left, or maybe we'll start on your left. No, let's start on my left. Your right. Okay, and I've got all sorts of radius gauges here that I may use to kind of help make sure that I'm exactly where I want to be on my fretboard. I've got cutters, and I'll talk more about these in detail, but cutters that are used to cut or flush trim the fret wire. I use a file, and my preference is a diamond-plated file. One critical thing here is something to hold your frets, okay? You have to organize them. To be successful, you have to organize them. This is my organizational system that I made a long time ago, and you know what? I've had many people ask me if I would make them one just like it, and I've said no in the past, but you know what? I'm making so much stuff now, templates, radius, sanding blocks, and stuff like that. If you want a super cool, solid maple, 24 fret, Maximum Guitar Works holding device, then we'll figure that out too. Next, we've got a scraper for cleaning out the fret slots. I've got a little triangle file, and you'll see what that's all about. I am going to be using a fret press to do this, and I've got brass cauls for all the major sizes, and we'll go over that. I've got a little gauge that helps me figure out what the depth, not exactly the number of the depth of my fret slots, but are they deep enough, yes or no? That's what this thing does. I've got a fret puller. Hopefully we don't need that in a fret installation. If we have to use a fret puller, something maybe didn't go right and we're having to redo something. But that's okay, we have that. We have 2 tools. One is to make the fret tang wider with this like waffle tread pattern. Another one is to make it smaller with a flat pattern. I don't often use these tools, but sometimes if you have a fret slot that is a little bit troublesome, maybe it got a little bit too wide, or maybe you cut your fret slots too narrow, and your frets aren't seating very well, then these tools may be important. There's a little cleanup tool for the fret slots if you ever get in a position where you have to clean out maybe some glue residue that kind of filled in to the slot somehow. Even though I'm using a fret press, A good old-fashioned fret hammer is still important to have. I will be using some CA glue to put my fret wire in. Not mandatory, but certainly I think a good thing to do. And I've got one of the fret wire bending systems here. What we talked about is how to calculate ahead of time how deep those fret slots needed to be so that after the radius and all the final sanding was done, that your fret slots were deep enough to insert the fret wire all the way across. Remember, the edges are going to be shallower than the middle because of the way we cut those slots when it's flat and then we radius it. So this tool is a nice little gauge that has ballpark ranges, 10 to 14, 15 to 20. Okay, so we can figure out how deep it needs to be to fit our fret wire. So I'm going to just lay this tang over top, and what I am seeing is there's two fine lines. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's probably trying to focus on my head. All right, so let me put it on my head, see if it'll focus on that. Okay, can you see it? All right, so it's got two fine lines around there. When I laid my tang across there, what I found was that as long as the first line is completely covered up, I have enough depth. So what I'm going to do is then take the neck, I'm going to insert, and I'm going to make sure that I don't see two lines. Now, you not only have to check the center, but you have to move it to the edges and check the edges and make sure that that depth is appropriate all the way across. Remember, the shallowest area is going to be on the edges. All right, now I've gone through and I've checked these, and all of them are good, so I do not have to do any work whatsoever. The next thing, before we're ready to start pressing this, is to prepare all of those slots. And when I mean prepare, what I'm going to do is take this little tiny triangle file, and I'm going to go on every single fret, and I'm going to take a couple swipes back and forth. Okay? And I just do front and back, or fore and aft, once, twice, 3 times a lady. Okay, next step. What step am I on? Am I on step 3 or step 4 of the fretting process? You know, when I'm in class, I assign a student the responsibility of keeping track what step I'm on. This is another problem with YouTube, is there's no one to keep track of what step I'm on. So how do I know where I am? If you want to do anything other than maybe standard stuff, or if you want to do compound stuff and not have to buy multiple sets, you're going to end up having to bend your own fret wire. There's a difference between working with nickel silver or even Evo Gold style fret wire and working with stainless steel fret wire. I'm going to be installing stainless steel fret wire. Why are you installing stainless steel fret wire? Because that's what I do. I choose the hard way, and that's the hard way. But seriously, stainless steel is amazing. It is very difficult to work with. You could plan on about 3 times longer than it would have been to use nickel silver. It's really hard on the tools. You pretty much have to have diamond-based tools for everything. But in return for that, you have a fret job that may never, ever have to be replaced. It is extremely durable, and I'm not getting into the tone differential, whatever. You know, do what you want. I find the benefit of the longevity in a guitar I'm making, that I'm selling somebody, and they don't have to take the guitar back to the shop after 5 years to get a whole new fret job done. I think they're going to appreciate that about my guitars. If you're talking about nickel silver, even if you have a compound radius, I would go just a little bit tighter than the tightest ones, and that will work for all of these because it will bend and it will conform to the fretboard as you press or hammer that in. Pressing is a better way to go, though. However, if you are using stainless steel fret wire, it tends to have a memory, more of a memory to it. and a little bit of spring back. So I have to be a lot closer to this radius in order to really get it to seat perfectly every single time. So I'm going to run it through here. I'm not really sure what that setting is. Okay, for many years, I've used this ratty old piece of paper. I've had my students use this piece of paper or one like it, and I've used this to try to figure out what my radius is. And although it certainly works, there are certainly more durable ways to do this. And so what I figured out is replace the piece of paper with a piece of acrylic. And not only am I holding it up to a line, I made the acrylic engraved to the point where I can take this and whichever slot this drops into is where it's going to be. Let's figure it out. There it is. 15, now a little flatter. 16, right there. That is a 16-inch radius. It just dropped right into the slot all the way across there in that fret wire. I want it to be maybe ever so slightly tighter than that. All right, I ran my fret wire back through the bender, and I've got now perfectly 15-inch radius on this fret wire. And I figure because it's such a tight area on this neck here, I could probably get by with the last 6 being exactly that radius, and then I'm going to start tightening them up. So 5 or 6 for sure. Now, when you're talking about working with stainless steel fret wire, it is significantly harder to cut than nickel silver or even Evo gold. Okay, I've got your StewMac flush cutting nippers right here, and I've got nickel silver, and I will take, oh gosh, let's try 2 fingers right there. And there it is. 2 fingers. I could have done it with 1 finger. You look, you want to see again? Look, Mom, no hands. Okay, 1 finger's a little harder, but I got it. All right, got to work on my index fingers a little bit. 1 finger definitely possible. 2 fingers was really easy. You step up to the Evo Gold with the same cutters, then 2 fingers. Oh, I think I heard my fingers crack a little bit there. Okay, 2 fingers was a little tough on those guys, but I could still do it. You move up to stainless steel fret wire. 2 fingers ain't gonna do it. 3 fingers ain't gonna do it. 4 fingers plus the thumb, I can finally get it right there. That was difficult. A lot more difficult. Now, I know that some of you think Overkill is my middle name. And perhaps it is. But I discovered these guys. Pneumatic cutters. And what I figured out is that I could take this bad boy and stainless steel, and with 1 finger, I can cut that stainless steel fret wire, even with a left hand, and never have carpal tunnel. Now, these turned out to be a little larger than I anticipated, but I was going off of the spec of what they were designed to cut. And so far, even though it's not technically a flush cutting device, they are pretty cool and definitely saves the wrist a little bit. So for long-term effects, I think I will forego my pride and use an air tool to accomplish the same thing that I did with might and vigor. Not to say that I can't perform with might and vigor. It's just that I don't always have to. All right, now we're up to fret 14. So if you want to know about where you should be, this is when you can use the different calls that you have for your fret press if that's what you've used. If not, you can use your radius gauges to help figure out where you are. But I'm going to use the calls. I've gone up to 14-inch radius, and now it looks like I can go to 13 or 12 actually looks better. So 12 will probably get me this whole section there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe another 6 of the 12-inch radius. So let's check this out and see what we're at. And it looks like we are flatter than that. We're about 16. I want to get this to a 12. Okay, this end of it is right on a 12. So let's use that. All right, we're down to our last 3 frets. I've rebent this extra piece, and I've got it now down to a 9.5, and that should be good for these last 3. Now, this is a pretty cool tool. However, I don't think it was ready for primetime video. I think I need to figure out now a hold down mechanism to hold this so that every time I cut a piece of fret wire, it doesn't shoot across the room somewhere. It could poke somebody's eye out. That's serious business. It's all fun and games until that happens, you know. So I think I am going to finish up the last 3 and risk injury just to make it a little bit easier. When I'm doing it manually, I can hold on to both sides at the same time, and I can cut, and there it is. So we're going to start from this side. Now we talked about what radius is going to be best. I've got a 16-inch caul, but I think I'm going to stick with the 15 just to make sure there's a little extra pressure on the edges. So I'm going to use that 15-inch caul. One of the reasons I do the fret install after I glue the fretboard on is it gives the fretboard more stability. One of the reasons I do it before I carve the back of the neck is because it's easier to run it into the fret press when I have a flat surface the entire way, as opposed to if that carve was already there, then I have to use a cradle to kind of hold it. It's a little bit trickier. So, everyone want to hear a funny story? Well, I had a dream, and in the dream, I was fretting a guitar neck, and I realized at the end that the camera was not on. Whoops. I'm telling you what, you guys missed the best fretting ever. Yeah, I can't say that I've never done that before, but I can say it's been a while. And you guys are going to have to learn fast, because in the video I did not do the 22nd fret because I need a support block under there. And I didn't have one handy, so I figured I'd come to that at the end. Well, now I made my support block. I cut something out about the same shape, goes in there, I shimmed it out with some tape on the bottom to give it a nice support so that when I press down that 22nd fret, it doesn't chip off the end of the overhang of the fretboard. So you're going to have to learn this process in 1 fret, maybe 2. So the process is exactly the same for all 22. So just take this one that I'll go carefully and methodically, and then repeat that in your head 21 more times, and you'll be there. All right, let's get close so you can see this. You got 1 shot to see this, maybe 2, and hopefully you understand the process and can replicate it. Now, I use CA glue, and I don't fill the entire cavity. I know some people will put glue on the back of the fret itself, on the tang, and I find that to be a little messier. So what I try to do, and I'm not promising, but let's see if I can do it left-handed, is I just put a little tiny dab on the far ends and the middle. Oh, that's not bad. Look at that. I'm ambidextrous. Not really. All right, so once that's in there, we have a little bit of working time, but I wanna work pretty quick. And in fact, I wanna have a little cleanup rag available to me at the same time. A little bit of acetone, and not so much that it's dripping, but definitely damp is what I want. Now I'll take my fret and I'll lay it in the proper place, making sure that tang is centered and seated firmly into the slot. If you start banging on this thing and it's at an angle, you're gonna damage the fretboard. I give 1 tap. That 1 tap just holds it into place, and now I can take it over to the press, or if you're hammering, you can hammer the whole thing, but take it to the press, and I press it down until it fully seats, and then I back it off almost immediately, take my rag and wipe off any residual seep out of CA. If you get it instantly, you won't have any problems in dealing with it, okay? If you do have a problem, my recommendation is a straight razor, and just take that edge and just clean up the corner of the fret. And again, the sooner you do that, the better. Fret by fret is fine. If you have a little bit more seepage, you probably use too much glue, but you can take the razor blade and just scrape in between the frets and work your way around, and that'll kind of clean off those areas for you. Let's give you a little bit of a close-up. Okay, you can see everything is looking pretty good. Everything is flush and straight. Remember when I was going through and using those pneumatic nippers and the frets that I was cutting off were flying all over the place? Well, somewhere in that process, I guess I mixed up one of the stainless steel frets with a nickel silver fret. And I discovered it when I was nipping the ends. I realized that, oh, that one nipped pretty easily. And then when I looked at it, I could see that the 16th fret was shinier and kind of a whiter silver. And the rest of them were a little bit more satiny and a little darker. And I realized at that point that, I don't know how I did that. It's been a rough day. I want you to know that. Forgetting to turn on the camera, misplacing one of the stainless steel and replacing it with a nickel silver fret. I blame it on the white shirt. You know, I believe that this just might be the very first video I have ever done wearing a white shirt. Because normally I'm making so much mess that white is not the color of choice. But I came in today thinking, you know what? I'll wear white. I'm not making any sawdust. I'll be able to stay nice and clean, and everything will be good. And then all of a sudden I'm forgetting to turn on the camera. I'm messing up the frets with different materials and stuff like that. I might as well have put an Evo Gold in one of the slots too. But like the old saying, when life throws you lemons, you make cheesecake. I now have an opportunity to show you something that I generally don't show my students in class unless somebody makes a mistake. So obviously this mistake must have been on purpose in order to give me the opportunity to show you how to replace a fret when you have installed them in the manner of which I did, okay, with the CA glue. All right, so I think we pointed these out earlier in the tools. If not, I must have overlooked them, but these are fret removers, okay? They're flush. They can kind of get under the fret and start prying it up, but you just don't start digging in. I always work, and here's the nickel silver one. I always work from one end, and in this case, I'm going to work from the far end, and I'm going to work back towards me. And I'm going to want to get that one end up, but there's CA glue holding that down. Did I mention earlier what disables or disarms CA glue? It's heat. Okay, this is a soldering iron that's probably running about 900 degrees Kelvin or Fahrenheit. And what I'll do is I'll lay that right on top of the fret in between, can you see that? In between my fret puller. That keeps the soldering iron from sliding off the fret and possibly marring a fretboard, especially if it's a lighter colored wood. But it also gives a concentration of heat. And I basically wiggle and squeeze a little tiny bit until I feel like that fret is beginning to give up. Okay, when I get under it, it's because it's popped up enough for me to get under it. And it's just about there. I can feel it working a little bit more and more in. So I'm going to go all the way out to the end again. Keep the heat on until my pullers get underneath because it starts popping up. There it goes. Now I'm completely underneath. Now I will work down about the width of the pliers, or pullers I should say, and keep working down, continuing to apply heat and continuing to wiggle to kind of get those pullers to get underneath, and just work it up little bit by little bit. I'm not using brute force. I'm using the heat. There we go. Now she's given up. I'll bring it in close just for a second, just so you can see what I've got is residual glue, but I have no chip out that needs to be repaired. This is a good time for the slot cleaner to get in there and reach down in and get as much of that out as I can. I can use some of my acetone. Probably won't be a miracle cure because it's so dry at this point, but it will help loosen it up a little bit. I may even have to break out the old fret saw if I'm not confident that this bottom is flat enough or deep enough, but it feels like it's pretty good. I'll scrape any of the remaining CA off the top. And then I'll get a little piece of 800 grit sandpaper. Make sure it's clean and dry. Now that we have this evil nickel silver out of the way, we can replace it with the stainless steel. Same process from a different angle for you. And I'm going to do a little bit of CA right on the edge, the center, and the other edge. Very minimal. Get my single piece of pre-cut fret wire that we pre-cut. One tap. Back over to the press. Press it fully seated and clean up the rest. And now we're just going to flush trim the ends. Again, make sure that they don't fall on the table, and you put the neck on top of it. Trust me, I did all these frets by myself, even though only 2 of them you got to see. But I guarantee that all 21 are exactly the same as those 2 I just did. It's the white shirt. What can I say? One last step we're going to talk about, and that's flushing up the ends. I like to do that and the bevel at this point. So the next time I'm coming to work on the frets, it's really just leveling, crowning, and then polishing up. All right, so it saves one step later on. Okay, this is the common tool that's used a lot this way. But this file, and most of them that are sold, are standard files and not diamond files. And therefore, they're not going to be too effective on stainless steel, and they're going to take a whole lot longer and probably wear out your tool pretty fast. So what I like to use is this file that has a diamond plate. In fact, this is the StewMac one with removable, and you can get it with other types of files that replace. To be honest with you, I have the complete set, and I've never used any other file other than the diamond one. So save yourself some money and just get the diamond one. But what I'm going to do with this is focus first on leveling all of these, and the diamond will make a lot quicker work of it than a regular file would. The advantage of the diamond is it does not cut wood very well. So what that means is when I'm working on here and I begin to get all of the stainless steel perfectly flush with the edge of the wood, you will hear a change of noise because it's going to stop cutting metal and it's going to basically be doing nothing to the wood. So you don't have to worry about digging down into the side and all of a sudden your neck changes dimension. It was a perfect 1 and 11/16 at the nut, and now it's down a 16th. Okay, you don't have to worry about that when you're using a diamond. So whether I was using nickel silver fret wire or Evo gold or stainless steel, I'm still going to use this exact same process. The other thing I've pointed out in my previous videos on fretting, that when I do this process, there's nothing, once I get it flat, I'm going to work on the edge. And I've kind of developed a technique where I believe where the standard is 30 degrees, that I'm probably 20, 25 degrees, just swagging it. I like a little less bevel than what the standard is. So I'm going to do that, but do that manually. And if you do them enough, it becomes pretty simple. But I do, by habit, wear a glove on my filing hand because I have, and it sounds funny, I've had the file, since it's not, you know, kind of wedged in there, slip off as I was doing it, and I've had my thumb dig into the side of a sharp fret and actually cut me. And that wasn't my goal. And when you cut your thumb once, guess what happens? Yeah, you cut it a second time. All right? You think that after the first time you'd learn. But for me, it took 2 times in one fret job to learn that I better wear a glove. Can you hear the difference now? It's not cutting any metal. That is when it's flush and you're ready to work the angle. I'll put in there that 20 degree or whatever angle that I use. The main thing I'm looking for is that it's consistent all the way up that edge. Now I'm going to do the other side, and I'm going to make sure that it's consistent both bass and treble sides. If you do have any gaps between the bottom of the fret tangs and the fretboard slot, this is the time to pull out some of your magic rosewood or whatever wood you're using, dust that you've been saving throughout the entire process, and basically we are going to force it in to all the gaps that might be present. CA glue, and we're going to let that wick into the end where it has the dust. And I'll just do one quick wipe. It'll end up being where it needs to be. And I'll let that solidify as I work on the other side. Now we'll clean up the edges of the fretboard. It's not the final sanding, so we don't have to go too hard at it. Let's bring it in for another close-up. Got those edges flush, slightly beveled, tight frets glued down. So even though we had a few battles and technology issues during this episode, hopefully you got the idea of what's going on. In addition to showing you my fret holder and my fret gauge, I think the other success today was the fact that I was able to wear a white shirt and keep it clean, even though I may never wear it again. Thanks for watching the video. Till next time, remember, no matter what you do, start with excellence.